All right, welcome into another episode of the Ryan and Goodman podcast. He's Bob Ryan. I'm Jeff Goodman, and we are talking injuries, unfortunately, Bob. I think for a while there, it was okay. Like it wasn't great, but we saw some guys go down and, it was frustrating. But now it's gotten to a point where it is a war of attrition. And it's whoever's left standing at the end is going to be, I think, the team that was the healthiest in the postseason.
You made a point several times that Milwaukee had been the LCS, but no longer. Now they're falling back in the same category with everyone else, assuming that there's some seriousness to Giannis's injury. Well, we started off with losing the two favorites because of injury. Let's be honest. Yeah. Everybody else, that whoever wins in the end, whoever survives, this is a Valvano thing, survive in advance, right? So whoever wins, that there will be no diplomatic recognition extended from either Brooklyn, New York, or Inglewood, California fans. Those fans of those two teams, they're not going to they're going to say, "Wait a minute," right? And there's going to be some. You won't be able to shoot them, talk them down because they got something going for it. It's a shame. It's a taint over it. It just is. But it leads to some interesting games. They go, whoa, But as a result, but that's not the kind of games that we want. And obviously, you want in a better case world, you want all the right players playing.
Like I was okay again when you have these young stars and whatnot, right? Like again, Giannis and Trae Young.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I can do it without LeBron and Kyrie. I'm okay without LeBron and Kyrie. But then when you add Giannis and Trae Young not playing up to 100%.
Kawhi.
Yeah, and Kawhi is not out there, and Chris Paul missed the first couple of games of their series. It just feels tainted. And I don't know, do you think in 10, 20, 30 years, we're going to look back on it and say that about the champion?
I think people are going to look back, although, then there'll be a rationale that injuries, there's always almost invariably there's some team that, I go back to 1958. The Celtics win 12 out of 13 if Russell doesn't get hurt, period. I'm not going to listen to anybody in St. Louis telling me otherwise. So that's 63 years ago we could have made this argument. And then I'll fast forward it 10 years, okay? In 1968, if Billy Cunningham doesn't get hurt and miss games when the Sixers are up 3-1 against the Celtics, they're not coming back against the 76ers that year to win that one. All right, so now we're up to 53 years. So this has been going on for a long time. But I don't think we've ever had the scope that we have in 2021. The number of teams that are affected that might have had a shot, I don't think we've ever had the complete, the totality of injury of affecting everything as we do this year.
And it was all really for money. I mean, let's face it, it was all for money for the most part. Otherwise, they could have played an abbreviated schedule. And, this is.
But if we attributed all of that, I don't know. I mean, Trae Young's he came down on the referee's foot. Giannis, I don't know. If we can say we can trace it to, body fatigue. I don't know.
Right.
Who knows?
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, you're right. There just seem to be so many of these.
Yeah. Kawhi, I don't know. Is Kawhi's is traceable to that or not? I don't know. So it's just know that we have it. And answer your question, I think historians will kind of put a little circle around this one and but look, there's always going to be historical look backs. I hate to tell you, Houston, but people think you were the luckiest people on the face of the earth that Michael Jordan stepped away, or else they would have won 8 in a row.
Yep.
And I'm one of those people. And they deserve to win based on what was left. They earned it. But, you're damn lucky that Michael decided to play baseball.
All right. So now we have Trae Young, his status in jeopardy with the bone bruise. We have Giannis's status in jeopardy with the hyperextended knee. We don't know if it's more than that, less than that. We're not sure at this point what either will be able to bring when the series resumes. Right now it's 2-2. Is it just a question of who's healthier and who can get in the? I mean, obviously, Trae Young. They showed their supporting cast is pretty good. And I said this early in the playoffs, and people mocked me, but I really like Atlanta's supporting cast. I'm not sure they have stars, but they got a bunch of really good basketball players, Bob, who can they fit well together, and a lot of them can make shots.
Well, yeah, I mean, and because they have for example, they got two shot makers that have not been consistent, but you never know on a given night. Kevin Huerter went from a 0-0-0 to 27 points in the most important game of the season at that point, right?
Yeah.
Bogdanovich is, some nights he's there with shooting well, some nights he's not, when he's on. And if the two of them are on the same night, that's a fact. Hey, I'm glad you brought up them, but that team, because welcome back Cam Reddish. That was in place since February of any consequence, and that was very important and very well needed and much needed. Now, people, I know I was guilty of this too. In terms of their injury situation, I always cited DeAndre Hunter.
Yeah,
and forgot to mention or neglected to mention Reddish. And now we see that Reddish, now he may become prominent, or the next game he may go, oh. You don't know.
Talented kid though. I mean, when he came in to Duke, the pecking order of talent wise, you thought at that point was RJ Barrett 1, Cam Reddish 2, Zion Williamson 3. And Cam Reddish got completely kind of lost because Zion was so good and they put the ball in RJ Barrett's hands, and Cam Reddish was an afterthought. Ended up going kind of late in the lottery, but they've done a great job drafting. Travis Schlenk's done a great job drafting. And I think you're right. They've got a bunch of guys who can make shots, and then you throw Clint Capella and John Collins in there.
Yeah.
And how about John Collins coming off the bench? Like their second unit is really good.
John Collins has been a factor throughout the playoffs and gets better and better. And I've been a pretty good member of the Capella fan club going back to Houston. So I was there. No, I'm not. I don't know that it's crazy. I didn't anticipate the blowouts, the two that we've seen, into the nature of them. You never anticipate a blowout. You anticipate some kind of equity and parity. You don't anticipate a blowout. So especially didn't anticipate a blowout last night. So here we are. I mean, I don't know, but if you would say, all right, if there's no Young and there's no Giannis, who's got the advantage? Well, I don't know. I know one thing. Let's talk about Khris Middleton. We were all canonizing him after the game before.
Yeah.
And that didn't, suddenly the carriage turned back into a pumpkin last night for him.
Yeah. And I like Middleton, and most nights I think he shows up. I do.
Yeah.
But I think when you take Giannis off the floor, and I know Middleton wasn't great in the first half before Giannis got hurt, but when you take him off the floor and ask Khris Middleton to be a number one without a number, or 1A without 1B, because Giannis is 1 until the final 2 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And then he becomes 1B.
Yeah.
And Middleton's got to be 1A because you got to put the ball in his hands because he can make free throws and make shots and whatnot. You wonder how much it affects the psyche of a team like Milwaukee when they hear Trae Young is not playing. I don't think it does because it's such a big game. I think Atlanta, just give them credit. They played better.
Well, we got to give credit to an old veteran too. Lew.
Yeah, Lew.
Sweet Lew. He gave them what they needed.
Yeah. Period.
That's what he did. And he hasn't been dynamic for them. He hasn't been the Lou Williams who won 3 six-man awards. And you're saying, okay, age, he's finally showing some age. Boy, when they needed it, they got it. I'll give him credit.
Yeah, like Lou Williams to me is like the better, I don't know if he's a better version of Joe Dumars, but like role-wise, right? Like Dumars used to just come off and make shots, and that's kind of what.
Well, Vinny's the one who was coming off. Joe was starting. He's more like
right.
The analogy is Vinny in that sense.
That's what I meant. I meant Vinny. Well,
yeah, I'm sure you did. Joe was.
I meant Vinny.
Oh, it was Vinny, and because Vinny added an extra layer of theatrics to his game was, it was just something. But not like no one else's. But anyway, so there's your analogy. Yeah, but Lou, he's down to 10 points a game, which is okay. But we're talking about a guy who was out, could get you.
He's capable
off the bench.
Yeah, he's still capable, especially when you take Trae Young off the court, right? So then you're going to need somebody to score.
And then we'll see if the 36-year-old legs, though, come back the day after the game. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how Trae Young. I would assume he plays. I don't know. I mean, again, you never know. Like I just had a bone bruise. I'm telling you, Bob, playing old man. Slow pitch softball. I dove. I had a bone bruise that no lie went up and down my entire leg. It just finished. It's been 2 weeks, a little over 2 weeks. Finally, the black and blue's gone. It went literally up and down the entire leg. Well, it started high and worked its way down. Finally, went through my foot. So like a bone bruise is no laughing matter, depending on how serious it is. And we'll see if Trae Young can come back and be effective, how much it kind of hinders him. Because the one thing with Trae is the beauty of Trae Young is his ability to kind of be shifty and get into the lane and avoid contact and use angles and whatnot.
Positively. Oh no, it's a shake and bake that, is much of an important part of his game. So, absolutely. It's funny about bone bruise and emanating from where it did, because what we expect with an injury such as he sustained is it's an ankle. As an ankle sprain, you come down somebody's foot, as 9 times out of 10, right? That's what we think. You turn your ankle, turn your ankle, right? So this is an odd one. Why in this particular case he winds up with a bone bruise as opposed to an ankle turn? Anyway, he's got it. He didn't play. They won anyway. It's craziness. It's craziness on both sides, because if you think you know what's going to happen.
Hi guys, Cedric Maxwell here. I want to take a minute to tell you about Marigold Medical. I'm used to keeping my body in great shape, but with arthritis, even the most simple everyday tasks became unbearable. As soon as I called Marigold Medical, I knew I was in good hands. No drugs, no surgery, just an experienced team of caring professionals that wanted to get me back to doing the things I love. Make the call to Marigold Medical and get back to pain-free life.
We're recording this on Wednesday, early afternoon.
Right, so we don't.
So obviously we've got Suns Clippers tonight. Suns with a chance to close it out.
Well,
Clippers, listen, give them credit. I give him a ton of credit. Paul George, what he's been able to do, Reggie Jackson. They've done a heck of a job getting it to 6. Is there any chance? Is there any chance they win this game in LA?
It's officially crazy. So I'm making no predictions. Seriously, they're at home, yeah, fine, but I don't know. You mentioned Reggie Jackson has been one of the recurrent stories of the entire postseason. Now, I took a second look and a third look and a fourth look at his resume, and it's not like he was nobody. It's not like he never had, high double-digit seasons. He hasn't had a nice career, but you never thought of him as anything special, And I mean, he has been a big-time player in these playoffs, which they totally needed. With given the Kawhi situation, he's been there every night for them lately, and I don't think the league paid great attention when he wound up moving to the Clippers. No,
and I think it shows you too how much it's about opportunity, right? That there's a lot of guys in the league that have given the opportunity and given the reps and running plays for them. What does it do for their kind of profile, right? What does it do for their ability to make shots? And that's like Reggie Jackson's a perfect example. He had been like a high volume guy on crappy teams for the most part. This is the first time we've seen him do it on a big stage.
I mean, who watches Pistons games outside of Detroit? Let's be honest, and no offense, but they're one of the most anonymous teams in the league, and have been, it's 17 years since they won. That they sneaked that championship in there,
So you like Suns? Are you now?
I mean, I still like Suns, but nothing's going to shock me.
You like Suns to win it all now, because now they become the team. I have Milwaukee as the team that was kind of the healthiest. Yeah. Now it's that team in Phoenix.
Well, we can. Yeah, I know it is, and the whole Chris Paul factor is interesting. The development of Ayton is interesting. I mean, it's. I'll let people who want to put their money down. This is why I don't bet. Many reasons I don't. I'm sorry.
Especially this year.
Oh, I mean, no,
this year is insane.
This year is absolutely insane. We had a series in which we had no 6 straight road games, and I mean that tells you probably all you need to know, the nature of it all. So I'm just in a sense, I don't have a strong emotional attachment. If you're going to rank my emotional attachment possibilities, it is Phoenix 1. in this of who's left. It is Phoenix 1. And
think about it. All three of the other teams are dealing with either their star player out or maybe out, right? Kawhi's gone. Trae Young certainly not going to be healthy. Giannis is not going to be healthy if he comes back at all. So the Suns are the only team left with their best player, and you can honestly say they have their three best players.
Except that Booker's trying to deal with the whole face mask. And Chris Paul. Okay, whatever was going on that cost him the 2 games, they never really gave us the full Monty on that one. Right. Exactly, but right, there probably are. Okay, I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but the idea of who's left and the new fresh face factor is so enormous. The combined championship totals of the 4 teams who are left in this franchise, in the city where they now play.
Yeah.
The Milwaukee Bucks 50 years ago.
It's amazing.
Won. The Hawks won in St. Louis in 1958, 63 years ago. The Clippers, who came into being as the Buffalo Braves in 1970 and are now in their 3rd city, have never won.
Yeah.
And of course, and Phoenix has never won.
Yep.
Phoenix came into being. They in Milwaukee, they were expansion teams the same year. In 68, 69, and 69, 68, 69. And of course, Milwaukee won the coin flip, the key coin flip of the second half of the 20th century, right? Yeah. They got Lew Alcindor, who, and the Suns got Neil Walk, and no offense. He once had a 20 and 12 year, by the way.
Who, Bob?
He once had a 20 and 12 year, Neil Walk.
Neil Walk?
Yeah. He was a decent player, but
I never even heard of him, Bob.
Are you serious? Oh, okay.
I've never heard of Neil Walk.
7-foot center out of Florida.
Really?
And okay, I'll give him. I'm trying to think of who he would be. He's not quite Robin. Well, his best, he's Robin Lopez at his best. At his best. Neil Walk, his best.
My favorite 7-foot Florida Gator product was Dwayne Chances.
Oh yeah. Dwayne Chances. I remember him very well.
Right? Remember Dwayne Chances?
Anyway, that was a fateful coin flip.
Yeah, I guess so.
But then again, the Bucks only got one out of it.
Right, that's true.
Yep. And we got one out of it. Wilt was still hanging around, and they beat him the next year. Wilt outplayed Lew Alcindor. No, he was now. By that time, I think he made the name change officially after he won that championship. I think it was an immediate aftermath. I'm pretty sure. So he was next year. By this time he was Kareem. But Wilt outplayed him. Aging Wilt actually outplayed him in 72. Anyway,
how much did you deal with Kareem over the years, Bob?
Quite enough that I was able to get him on his farewell tour in '89. I went out and stalked him. Basically, they were coming east for his last game in Boston. I went out and they sent me out to come east on their trip. It started out in a road game at the arena, sports arena, against the Clippers. And we went to Milwaukee, went to Cleveland, we went to New Jersey, and somewhere along the way, he gave me a sit-down interview in a plane, one-on-one. We got it done. Talked music, of course, he did the jazz music thing and everything. But I knew him, and he was always engaged. I mean, that.
He blows me away. He blows me away how intelligent he is. Like, he is just
he's
everything he says or writes, I want to read or hear everything.
He is an extraordinary human being, and the life he has led, growing up in New York, the big, tall Negro, raised Roman Catholic, controversially adopts Islam, the whole career perambulation, the hook shot, the Indian reservations, the books, the history books. I mean, wow, there's nobody like him. He is a sui generis American great.
No doubt. All right, let's run through some of these coaching changes here.
Oh, yes.
Because we've had a lot of activity, which we knew we would between last week.
We had to with 6 of these, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, some big names and one very anonymous guy. Who do you want to start with, Bob?
Well, we're going to start at home here with Ime Udoka. I say this, and I say often, be very judicious with your use of the words always and never. Now, I am about to tread in those waters. See what you think. I have never in any sport, all four major sports, and anytime seen anything like this, which is the amount of praise being heaped on a rookie coach from sources, universal sources throughout the league, on Ime Udoka, who was certainly on a Q rating in American, would have been minus for people. He's entering in Boston with this showered with praise. I hope the expectations aren't going to be too much for people. And locally,
you know why? You know why this is?
No.
Because he's anonymous. He's anonymous. So instead of anything in his background, like Rick Carlisle, right? If you hire Rick Carlisle, it's going to be a lot of good, great coach, but can't deal with Luka, whatever it is. With Ime Udoka, it's a blank slate. And the only people that we're talking to as media people are people that like Ime Udoka. Like nobody's calling up talking to, whether it's Adam Himmelsbeck of the Boston Globe or me or somebody, Jay King of the Athletic, whoever it is. We're not seeking out the naysayers, and the naysayers aren't going to say anything about a rookie head coach. They're not. Now, again, I've heard the same things. The people I've talked to have spoken glowingly, whether it's, the first one I talked to was Rudy Gay, I've known Rudy since he was a kid. So I called Rudy right when it happened, and Rudy was like, "Yeah, I love him. Great with players. We'll get up in him, but he's got an even keel personality, but an edge to him." And then I talked to Dan Dickau, who grew up with him a little bit in Portland, and he said some of the same things. And then I talked yesterday to Damon Stoudemire, who's in the mix for the Celtics assistant job.
So we find
right
out
now. He grew up again in Portland with Ime. He said he's kind of not my younger brother. He's a little bit younger than Damon. He said he's kind of like my brother. And I hope Damon comes to Boston, because I actually think he'd be great for Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and specifically whoever is running that point guard spot.
Yeah.
Especially if it's Marcus Smart. I think Damon could really help a Marcus Smart. And that's the guy. Listen, if he's the starting point guard, he's got to make strides in terms of shooting the basketball, decision making, all of that. But getting back to Udoka, the key is everybody says he's a guy that can connect with the players. He's a guy that will put a foot up in their whats when needed, but is also somebody that can have some fun with them and kind of a new age head coach. And just because he doesn't have a name, like, I'm with you. When everybody asks me right now, all my buddies ask me, they're like, "What do you think? How good is he?" And I'm like, we don't know. We're not going to know. Like, we knew with Brad Stevens how good he was in college.
Right. We knew
he was a great coach. We don't know how good Ime Udoka is yet. We're going to, in a couple of years, we're going to know. But we don't know yet. And a big part of it is going to be what Brad Stevens gives him at the point guard spot and shooters, and also how Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum play off one another.
Yep.
Right? Like, those are going to be the two most important things for this team.
Well, it's interesting that as soon as the coaching derby began, his name shot to the top of the list, along with a coach we're going to discuss who did get a job in Portland. And his name was at the top of the list of assistants right away. And I had to go brush up. Oh, I vagued his itinerant career in the NBA, vaguely, and didn't know about all the perambulations. It wasn't on my radar screen 3 months ago. I'll put it that way. Okay, at all. I mean, you said, "Where do you think? Where's Ime Udoka assistant?" I wouldn't have any idea. Anyway,
No
I'll
idea.
say he's coming in with this. My God, this praise all over the league, and I just hope the fans are not really paying attention. They're going to expect the guy to walk in by walking, 100 yards on top of the Charles River before he gets to the Boston Garden. I mean, I that's all I'm saying. Wow. But he's handled himself so well so far. And you mentioned the number one technical issue. They need a point guard. I hope they're not counting on Marcus Smart being the starting point guard. That's not.
Well, I think what other option do they have right now?
Gotta go find one, right? Brad's got to go find one. I don't know. I mean, Pritchard is going to be in this league for 10 years, 12 years, like probably along the lines of our recent podcast guest, TJ McConnell. He's going to be a sought after, valuable auxiliary player. I don't know that he'll ever be a star or anything, but so he's not the answer, but you want him on your team. But I don't know. If it's Marcus Smart, boy, that's going to be a, I'm just never,
I don't think it's going to be enough. Again, unless, again, if you have Smart and you add another big time shooter, like what if I told you you could have Duncan Robinson with Tatum, with Jaylen Brown, with Robert Williams, but your point guard is Marcus Smart.
All right. As long as of course, one of the issues with Marcus Smart is shot selection, and the previous coach either didn't try or was unable to instill the proper calibration of in that regard, and that is a challenge for Mr. Udoka. Because I love, I'm highly ranked member of the fan club, but I have to be realistic. At times, you want to go, Marcus,
a lot of times, Bob, a lot of times.
Yeah.
Now, again, if he's making them, all right, keep launching them. But there are a lot of times when he's not making them and he keeps shooting.
All right. The next one up.
Let's go with your guy. Can we go with your guy, Rick Carlisle?
Yes. Didn't take long from the resurface. So what do we make of the departure, by the way? What do you make? Let's start with that. What do you make of the departure based on the fact that he immediately resurfaced elsewhere?
Well, I think it was probably a mutual parting of ways.
One of those, yeah.
Yes,
right.
I think it was. Him and Mark Cuban sitting down and they like each other and just like, hey, you know what? I think the time has come. It's run its course. And yeah, I think Rick Carlisle, it's frustrating. I'd heard it's been frustrating for him with Luka, because as great as Luka is also the type of guy that, is he gonna follow to the T what Rick Carlisle spells out for him to do on the court? No, I mean, Luka's gonna just do his own thing. And that's the way it is with a lot of young players right now, right? I mean, like Billy Donovan, when he coached Russell Westbrook, it was like, yeah, you try to run a play, but Russell Westbrook would look over at him and be like, I'm doing what the hell I want to do.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think Carlisle, it's hard because I think we talked to him and he said he's changed over the years. But but you're gonna soften a little bit, but you're not gonna completely sell out to your values and what you believe, right?
No, he's made a reasonable adjustment and rational adjustment, but still he's essentially who he is. He's essentially a disciplinarian. It's essentially, remember he was Larry Bird's defensive coordinator, more or less, when he started as an assistant coach. And he's got his philosophy and his principles, but he's got a championship in his resume, and he's had a overall a successful tenure in Dallas. And maybe we reached the Luka thing is a specific thing I was going to say. So over and above the time frame lapse, you got to move on. The voice has got to be heard by somebody else, kind of thing. So he goes to Indiana, which I think we both agree, healthy, has some intriguing players.
A lot of them.
Yeah, and I was kidding Rick. I really got I immediately texted him, said, "You've got two of my favorite players, Sabonis and Brogdon." Yep. And Turner can
type of players. They're fundamentally sound.
Sabonis is like central casting sent him over Rick for Rick, no question. And
you can yell at him, you could scream at him. Same thing with Brogdon. Same thing with Karis LeVert. Same thing with Miles Turner. Same thing with McDermott and TJ McConnell. If they come back, like he's got a team that fits him better. Now, they don't have that superstar, but they've got a lot of really good players. And if they're healthy, I think Indiana can crack the top 4 in the East.
Yeah, I think they're going to be right in there. No question. And so, I'm happy that Rick got to me a good job.
What's your grade? Give me. I want the Bob Ryan grading system here. Udoka incomplete.
Well, yeah. I mean, how do we know? I mean, it's but Rick, I think Indiana getting him is a B+ A-.
Yeah, I would go B+. I go B+.
B+.
For sure. Okay. All right, then the most polarizing right now is up in Portland, and it's the guy who played 51 games for the Boston Celtics, and that is before being jettisoned by Rick Pitino. That is Chauncey Billups, who has been on the bench for a year with the Clippers. And he was kind of the guy all along that I had heard from the day it opened in Portland. He was the favorite. I don't know if Becky Hammond's got a fair shake at all here.
Mm-hmm.
I feel bad, but I think she's become a token interview. I hope I'm wrong, but I think she's become a token interview for a lot of places. But what do you make of Chauncey Billups and the press conference and the first question?
Two separate. This is a completely, I won't say extraneous, but parallel issue.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with what a coach is going to do. I'll just say this. I have no recollection of any of this when it allegedly happened in Boston. None. Zero. So it was suppressed. I had no idea ever about this. And
sexual assault, right?
And yeah, that it was no charges were filed, but there was a settlement.
Yep.
Settlements always, leave you with certain inferences,
Yeah.
All right. But I this stunned me when it came to light because I have any idea. These are times, we live in the aftermath or very much in the forefront of the Me Too era.
Yep.
It didn't go over real well in that regard. And then of course they got Damian Lillard caught in the middle, really in terms of not knowing, and I'm sympathetic to Damian Lillard in regard to the fact that I can see him saying, hey, I was 7, 8 years old. I wasn't reading the newspapers.
Right.
And he's like, if you and I didn't know about it, was there any reason for him to know about it?
I'm sure he didn't know, but we heard it leading up to his hiring. That's where we heard it. There's no way Damian Lillard didn't know 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah, all right.
That's what I would say. Is none of us knew probably or remembered from 20 years ago. But they knew, Portland knew leading up to it. It got out there a little bit. You wonder if it was planted by somebody else who was trying to get the job. I don't know, but they went ahead. They hired Chauncey Billups. And now the big question, go ahead.
Is there is society allow someone to be remorseful and make amends? Which,
whether it's, I would have liked to have heard him answer the question, Bob.
Yeah, whether it's Chauncey Billups or your next door neighbor or your brother-in-law. They shut down the inquiry. Which they can't
do that. You just can't do that. You know what? You got to be a big boy.
They did.
You know it's coming.
Right. Exactly.
You know it's coming. You know it's going to keep coming.
This is not the way you want to. This is not. So there's a cloud hanging over this. And now, his name immediately. Now let's talk about basketball.
Yeah.
His name immediately went to the surface. Everyone identified that he was a candidate for any of the jobs. So his stature has clearly, been fixed in the league society that he was a comer and a very logical choice to become a head coach on a basketball basis. So we, on a team which, they've not, they've been hanging around, but not able to get beyond that first round barrier with a backcourt that can get you 60 points in any given night, and with a pretty useful big man when he's healthy. And
that's the biggest thing though, Bob. The biggest thing is whether he can keep Damian Lillard there, right? Because if you lose Lillard,
who just we upped in 2019,
right?
But now is this going to shake him up? And so they got a mess on their hands.
They do.
Or do I go that far to say mess? They have a situation.
I don't know if it's a mess.
Situation.
Because I feel like, all right, like everything else, the Chauncey Billups deal will blow over, right? That's maybe not a 24-hour news cycle because they screwed it up. So it's going to go longer than that. Could have been 24-hour news cycle and he could have been done with it if he'd answered it the right way. Now, the next step is if he's got the type of relationship where Damian Lillard says, yeah, I'm good. I'm staying here, at least for this year. Let's see how Chauncey Billups is with a head coach. I think a lot is going to depend on this year.
Right.
If they do well, and poor Zach Collins broke his foot again, I think.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I think he had another re-injured it, so he's out again. And so, I feel bad because they need a guy like him. Like Zach Collins was coming and really coming, and now
college a lot
to re-injure it, that'll give them a little bit of a hit. All right, so he's polarizing. What about Jason Kidd in Dallas? Talk about polarizing. I don't know about you, but I don't want to say never, but there are very few people that can, when you mention their name, you get completely contrasting opinions on him, like Jason Kidd. Some people love him and some people absolutely dislike him. When you talk players who have been coached by him, Bob, players who played with him. I think more guys liked him because Jason Kidd got him the basketball. He was a good leader. But is he the right hire? Has he been humbled?
The thing is, if you're Dallas, if you're Mark Cuban, who's smart,
Yeah,
you should be smarter. You don't need this. He's not good enough that you go to the mattress for him in the circumstance. Let somebody else do it. You don't need this. You're inviting. You thought you had that situation in your allegations about the office and all under control, and now you've given fuel to the
another guy with issues, another guy with off the court issues.
This is tone deafness, really, Mark.
Yeah.
Bad hire in that regard. It's not. Excuse me, inappropriate hire. How's that? An inappropriate hire, not the right fit, the right franchise, in the right time. You couldn't have gone too much longer. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I'm with you. I was surprised in this one, but again, I think so many guys right now want to hire former players with names. And Orlando was another one that threw out there. People thought Penny Hardaway was headed to the Magic, his former franchise, but I talked to him yesterday, and I don't know if it ever, Bob, I don't think it ever got to a point where he was their guy. I think he was in the mix for them. And then the crazy part, I think he leveraged it a little bit for being in the mix because he couldn't hire there was a stretch. He's tried to hire Larry Brown as an assistant coach at Memphis for the last month or so. Hasn't been able to. I don't think the president or somebody, the AD president, they didn't want it. Well, now he had some leverage. So the day after he withdraws or is out of the mix for the deal for the job in Orlando, the Magic job, Larry Brown is good to go, and he's now an assistant coach with the Memphis Tigers.
Oh my God!
Yeah. How about that? He's only had three programs on probation.
That's all.
In college, Kansas, UCLA, and most recently SMU. He got fired. He did a gig in, I think, Italy, and I think it lasted like half a season, and then he was fired. He's 80 years old. Hell of a coach. We know that. But I just feel like wherever Larry goes, trouble follows.
Wow. Larry, sit back, go to your Barca Lounger, get the NBA package, open up a nice bottle of red and come on.
Hey, the best Larry Brown story. So, I think he lives in Philly, or he did, whatever. So when he was out years ago, he used to go by Villanova's practice all the time just because he had nothing to do. He was out of work, and he would go by Villanova's practice. And at the end of practice, he'd always want to talk to Jay Wright and tell him what he thought and this and that. And then Jay's like the nicest, as you know, like the nicest guy in the world, will talk to anybody. Finally, I think he had it. And he was like telling his assistant, you got to go get Larry after the practice. You got to go head him off. I can't do this after every practice and spend an hour with Larry Brown talking about I got other things to do. But Larry, and listen, Larry loves coaching. He loves coaching, and he's a good coach.
He loves coaching, and what he doesn't like are games. Right. Larry would be happy if all you did was coach and practice and didn't have to go through the formality and the tedium of actually watching a game, playing the game.
Very true.
Remember how many times I tell you I'm a teacher, Oh yeah.
But we still got
I learned something I did not know that he had been.
Yeah, that just happened.
And
how about, all right, we finish on this. The Utah Jazz kind of reassigned their general manager, Dennis Lindsey. I don't know if you saw that, from GM to consultant. And his title wasn't GM because the GM is Justin Zanuck, but he's above Zanuck. He was the one making the personnel decisions. I had heard a year ago that there was some friction between Lindsey and maybe Quinn Snyder, blah, 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 that Lindsey wasn't long for the GM job, for that job. So I don't know if you remember, a couple of weeks ago, I said when Danny Ainge stepped down from his post with the Boston Celtics, what did I say, Bob?
Yes, that wouldn't be surprised if he winds up with a little post out there in Salt Lake City.
I'm just reading the tea leaves here, Bob. I'm just reading the tea leaves and saying that it wouldn't shock me if Daniel Ainge.
We have not heard the last from Danny Ainge, period. Right. That's that, and
he can go. Listen, he can golf a whole lot more in Salt Lake than he can in Boston. And, maybe it's not I don't know what type of position it'll be, but I'd be surprised if he's not involved with the Utah Jazz in some capacity, maybe in the highest capacity of what he was doing here in Boston.
Well, well, that wouldn't shock me at all, but given his background and the whole thing, and of course, but and plus the fact that he's not ready to quit. I know that.
So how do you like the Brad Stevens era so far as the general manager? Are you all in? Are you like, you feel good about it, or are you just totally?
I'm okay with the Kemba trade. Yeah. I'm not sure that I am ready to accept how much Al Horford has left. But if nothing else, will be supposedly a good influence in the locker room, a good influence with Robert Williams, a good influence with Tatum and Brown, and I don't know where I put Marcus in that, so I'll leave it that over there. But anyway, and the coaching hire, it's been met with such universal approval. Who am I to question? Well, I'll say okay if you say so. So I'm okay with it so far. He dived into it. His work habits obviously are very good. I'm feeling okay. Yes, good.
Are you feeling as okay about the spat between Kevin Durant and your former colleague Jackie McMullen? Did you see that?
Yeah, I'm picking up on that because my Twitter's been awry. But I'm going to defend Jackie to the death. I feel like she's like my sister, yeah. And I'm not the hugest Kevin Durant fan when he doesn't have a basketball in his hands. Yeah. I don't think he's a bad person, but I'm not a big fan of the way he's
spending too much time around Kyrie, I think.
I'm not. So I'm back and I'm lining up with Jackie.
Well, I mean, just why do you even have to come out? It's not like Jackie said something so controversial. All she said was, I was talking to Kevin Durant and I got the sense that he wants to win 3 titles and leave a legacy in Brooklyn. Isn't that basically what he said? What she said?
I know.
Big deal.
He's accusing her of putting words in his mouth and saying she thinks we're friends and we're not. That was unnecessary. I'm not a big fan of his. So you come into definitely the wrong place if you look for somebody who's going to, line up against Jackie. It won't be me.
And then KD going against Scottie Pippen too. It's a busy week for KD, right?
Yeah.
Pippen, did you see the clip? He was on Dan Patrick's show, and it was like a 4-minute clip. And honestly, everything else he said was kind of noise to me. But the one thing I said was playing with Michael Jordan really rubbed off on Scottie Pippen, because in that 4-minute clip, he dropped Scottie Pippen in the third person 5 times. Now, I remember thinking when I was listening to Michael Jordan's retirement, I can't remember which retirement speech it was, which one of them. But I'm telling you, it might have been 100 times. He said his name in the third person. But he's Michael Jordan. He's the GOAT. He's the GOAT. I felt like, all right, he can do that. Scottie Pippen in a third person.
When Scottie Pippen finally apologizes for 1.8, I'll start listening to Scottie Pippen. But I'm holding that grudge forever.
So who would you rather? Whose career? I saw people arguing on this. Whose career would you rather have? Scottie Pippen's, who was obviously Robin to Michael Jordan, or Kevin Durant, who, again, I mean, listen, he was kind of Robin. I mean, he was Batman, obviously, in Golden State, but hasn't won at the same level as Pippen, but is a better talent.
Yeah, he's a better player.
Right.
But Scottie Pippen's a Hall of Famer. He's a dream teamer on merit. And they needed him, by the way. Everybody got hurt. He was running point guard. People don't even know that. Remember that. Not that it mattered, but it did. Anyway, I'd say I'll take those rings, and knowing how good I was and how important. And the fact is, Michael has to know he's not winning if I'm not there. And I'm not winning if he's not there. It's just that simple. It's like,
were you surprised? Were you surprised he called Phil Jackson a racist?
Yeah. I can't believe, that I find that when I wasn't there, I don't know the dynamics, but Phil Jackson, I find that one a difficult thing to grasp, that, given his entire background, go back to his Knicks background, go back to his friendships with the Knicks, go back to, I'm Willis and Clyde and all that stuff. And I'm not ready to buy that.
Yeah. And he was the big thing was like the Tony Kukoc that Phil Jackson ran the final play for Kukoc instead of him.
And this is now a racial thing?
Right.
That was a basketball thing, period.
I mean, listen, I never felt like, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I never felt like Scottie Pippen was some great offensive player. He was a great all-around player, an incredible defender who was a good offensive player, but not a guy that you wanted to be the number one option. I think Phil was probably thinking Kukoc can be that. He may not be that yet, but he was a better offensive player than Scottie Pippen in terms of skill level.
He was vindicated. He was rewarded for it too. So good for him. I know. Oh. Well, then again, oh boy, is there anything dicier than a couple of white guys trying to assess charges of racism? Boy, it's an impossible.
It is. It's just like, if I'm KD, I feel like he's just got nothing to do right now. He's home. He's just looking at Twitter all the time and just getting into it with people. And I love Kevin. I mean, I've known him forever. I've told you that.
Mhm.
I'd love to have him on our pod. I don't think it's going to happen, but I'll try once again and see if I can get him. I'll probably see him. He's been out on the circuit. He's got a team, Team Durant.
Oh, really?
And his dad, who's a friend of mine, he runs the program.
Mhm.
And I don't know if Kevin will be out, but I'll ask him again. And again, I just feel bad because I really feel like people now forget the first Kevin Durant pre-Golden State. He was like revered. He was the golden child. You never heard a bad word about him. And now everything has flipped, and social media. And listen, he's entitled to do whatever he wants in social media. Like, he could go back at anybody, and I kind of give him credit for it to some degree.
His image
because he
peaked.
will speak his mind.
His image peaked with the post MVP speech
100%.
and mom.
Yes.
And
yes.
that was the pinnacle of his public approbation. And he's chipped away at it, I believe.
No, you're right.
Self-inflicted wound ever since.
Yeah.
Right.
No, you're absolutely right. And again, I feel bad because I've known Kevin for so long, and I think he's a sweet kid. He's not a kid anymore, but I still think of him that way, as a sweet kid, innocent kid. He's not out there partying. He's not at clubs every night.
He's not on the front page of the newspaper. He's not on page 6 of the newspaper.
Right.
You don't have to worry about that.
And he is so special and so much fun to watch on the court.
He's grown on me how good he is.
He's amazing.
No question. You're an absolute fool if you deny him.
If I'm saying to you, the greatest offensive players of all time, the guys that you just want to put the ball in their hands, go make a play, I think it's got to be MJ and then KD.
Well, as far as he's shooting the ball, he's at 7 feet tall, being able to get his own shot anytime, kind of thing, which is always impresses me. I agree with you. Is Larry Bird's ability to pass
right.
At the highest, not a high level, the highest level, and made everybody else a potential threat at any moment on the court in a way that Kevin Durant and Michael never did. Either. Couldn't. And now LeBron does. And he's the closest thing to Larry. And of course, I know people are going to assume, it's a fun argument who's a better passer. I still think Larry's a better passer, a more versatile passer. But anyway, that ability. But when in terms of sheer shot making at 7 feet and getting the shot you want, the two greatest standards are he and Nowitzki. But he's a higher level than Nowitzki.
All right, there you have it.
Because of the handle.
Another episode of Ryan and Goodman podcast in the books. Make sure you watch wherever you listen to your podcasts. Also watch live stream every single week.
Watch. You don't see the wardrobe. I mean, come on.
We'll see you next week, and we'll maybe we should put in a request for Ime Udoka.
Ooh, well, he might be a busy fellow, but
he could. But
listen,
who would he rather speak to than Bob Ryan?
Well, that
nobody.
Sure.
All right, we'll see you next week.